The Galactic Council chamber echoed with laughter. A collection of alien leaders from across the galaxy had gathered, and today's subject had been Earth's ancient culture. On the screen floated images of old human myths, giant dragons, thunder, gods, ghost ships, and shadow monsters. They all laughed harder when the myths of flying castles and sea beasts were shown. To most of the galaxy, humanity's old stories were nothing more than primitive entertainment, evidence of an emotional, dramatic species lost in fantasy. But one alien did not laugh. Velzar, a young historian from the intelligent but quiet Zelnari race, kept his eyes fixed on the data. While others mocked, he leaned forward in his seat, studying patterns. Earth was a strange world, new to the galactic stage, mysterious, and surprisingly calm in recent decades. After joining the Council, Earth had shared very little about its military or technology. Most thought it was because humans were weak or still developing. Velzar wasn't so sure. He had studied over 100 Earth myths, and something about them didn't feel fictional. He noticed that many of the stories had names of stars that existed in real space. Ancient human texts mentioned systems and sectors that had no records in Council history, yet somehow matched with unexplored or forgotten coordinates. How did early humans know about them? He ran the calculations again. The matches weren't just chance. It was almost as if the stories had been placed there with purpose. Later, Velzar approached one of the senior members, Chancellor Draxil. "What if these myths are not fiction?" he asked quietly. "What if they are codes, warnings, or memories?" Draxil gave him a long look before smirking. "Then we should be more afraid of bedtime stories than black holes." He walked, away laughing, leaving Velzar alone with his thoughts. Weeks passed. Then came the first strange report. A mining ship near the Zathari belt went dark. The rescue team sent after it found the crew missing. No damage, no signs of struggle, just a strange marking carved into the ship's wall. When analyzed, the symbol matched an ancient Earth rune, the symbol of the Watcher from the Stars, a myth creature humans said hunted silently in the dark. More ships began vanishing, all from deep space regions. No distress signals, no evidence of piracy. Just silence, and sometimes a mark. The Council still refused to connect these events with Earth's stories. Velzar, however, did. He began compiling a list. The stories matched the locations. The symbols matched the myths. Each event followed a myth humans had once told as children's tales. One night, alone in his quarters, Velzar found something chilling. He discovered an old Earth transmission, an ancient warning hidden in a children's book. The message was encoded in rhyme, but the meaning was clear. "If the dragon flies with burning eyes, the stars will blink in fear. If castles float and thunder rolls, the end is drawing near." Velzar sat in silence. This wasn't just imagination. It was prophecy or preparation. He sent his findings to the Council. They ignored him. They said humans were simply being dramatic, and that perhaps Earth had planted these stories for attention. Still, a few Council members grew uneasy. Small teams were sent to observe Earth's activity from afar. What they saw was nothing. No ships moved, no fleets launched. Earth's surface looked quiet. But deep in the darkness behind their system, behind a field of decoy satellites and cloaking tech, something massive stirred. Velzar didn't know that. Not yet. A month later, a deep space probe near Earth's outer system detected an unknown object. It was big, too big to be a normal ship. It didn't emit any energy signature, completely cold. It simply moved slowly, like a shadow drifting, across the stars. Then, the signal from the probe cut off. No explosion. No interference, just silence. In its place, a transmission arrived. Short, in every known language. 5 simple words. You mocked, now we answer. The Galactic Council held an emergency meeting. This time, no one laughed. They demanded Earth respond, but Earth said nothing. Velzar knew then. The myths were not just tales. They were warnings. They were the truth written as fantasy, because perhaps no one would believe the truth if told directly. Humanity had hidden its weapons behind stories. It had turned memory into legend. And now, those legends were waking up. Somewhere behind the veil of darkness, Earth's war fleet had already begun to move, and when it arrived, it would not be small. It would be as large as the myths had promised. So large, it would block out the stars. The galaxy did not know it yet, but something had already changed. After the strange message from the destroyed probe, you mocked. Now we answer. The Galactic Council ordered tighter patrols near Earth's sector. But still, nothing could be seen. Earth remained silent. No new transmissions. No ship movements. Just a quiet blue planet floating in space. But Velzar, the young historian, felt a heavy tension building in the void. He knew this silence was not peace. It was preparation. Then came the second wave of disappearances. This time, it was a convoy of trade ships from the Rathari Union. 12 ships entered the Icaron Drift, a neutral zone near Earth's reach. None came out. Drones sent to investigate found only debris and another mark. This time it was a massive symbol, scratched into the surface of a drifting asteroid. The image was ancient. It showed a massive ship, shaped like a beast with wings swallowing stars in its path. Velzar recognized the symbol immediately. It was from an old human story called the Devourer in the Void, a creature from myth that came before time, with a hunger for suns. Now the Council started to panic. Warships were moved closer to Earth's outer systems. Scout drones were sent in greater numbers. Secret meetings were held about possible human threats. Some began to whisper that Earth had never been weak, just very, very quiet. And now that silence was breaking. On the hidden edges of the Milky Way, far from the Council's eyes, things were happening fast. Earth's hidden shipyards, built in dark systems and cloaked fields, were now alive with energy. Giant machines. Forged starships that were nothing like the standard models the Council knew. These ships were shaped like the creatures of Earth's old legends. A few looked like giant birds with steel feathers. Others like floating castles, their cores glowing with silent power. They were not just machines, they were messages. Each one carried the weight of myth. Each one told a story. A warning. These ships did not move through normal space. They used deep space jumps that left no trace. Silent, invisible. A technology Earth had never shared. The first real sighting came from a Kalari patrol ship in Sector 9A Delta. The Kalari vessel was passing through a quiet system when their sensors detected something massive blocking the star behind them. The ship turned, and what they saw stopped their hearts. A shadow so large it covered half the stars. No lights. No sound. Just sighs and silence. And then it vanished. The Kalari crew survived. Barely. Their report reached the Council 2 days later. Velzar read it, and his hands shook. The description matched the old Earth legend of the Silent Fortress, a mythical stronghold that appeared only before the fall of empires. It was no longer a story, and now rumors spread faster than truth. In far systems, miners swore they saw burning ships flying through space, leaving trails like fire. On moons near human borders, alien farmers spoke of hearing deep hums in the sky at night, like chanting. None of these reports were confirmed, but fear had already taken root. Velzar tried to warn the Council again. "These ships are not random," he said. "They are shaped by stories for a reason. Humans are using fear as a weapon. A psychological strike." Chancellor Draxil now looked pale and worried. "What are you saying?" he asked. "I'm saying Earth's fleet is already moving," Velzar replied. "But we cannot see them, because they are not just hiding in space. They are hiding inside our fear." The Council ordered a lockdown around Earth's territories. Defensive lines were drawn. Satellites were set to scan for heat, motion, and energy. But none of them picked up anything. And yet, star systems kept going dark. Small colonies would stop responding. Communication relays would fall silent. Each time the Council would send warships to investigate. And each time, they would find nothing but silence. And another mark left behind. The marks were growing more terrifying. One looked like a flaming sword, driven into a planet's surface. Another was a symbol of a creature with 1,000 eyes, watching from every corner of space. These were not random. These were chapters of a myth, and Earth was writing a new one. Velzar began to understand the pattern. "They are not attacking planets," he whispered to himself. "They are removing visibility, killing information. They are controlling the story." The fleet was not trying to destroy. It was trying to remind the galaxy of what it forgot, of what Earth had always hidden beneath its silence, a history of monsters, gods, and shadows. And now those shadows were moving, not with loud thunder, but with quiet power. Power that didn't need to speak. It only needed to be seen, once, and never forgotten. Earth was not just coming to war. Earth was coming to tell a story that would block out the stars. Velzar sat in the dark, his room lit only by the soft glow of his data tablet. Reports kept arriving, ships missing, colonies silent, and strange symbols left behind like signatures in space. He had collected every image, every story, every scan. The Council still debated and delayed, but Velzar had no more doubts. This was not war in the traditional sense. It was something older, something deeper, a message written through silence and myth. One day, while decoding old Earth, transmissions for clues, Velzar stumbled upon something strange, a forgotten signal buried deep in an old Earth archive. It was over 300 years old and labeled as a mythical emergency protocol. The file was disguised inside an old storybook, a tale about heroes, monsters, and final warnings. But when Velzar ran it through his translator, his blood ran cold. The message said, "If our gods return, run. If our stories walk again, hide. If our fleets rise with flame, it is too late." It wasn't just a story. It was a threat. He sent the translation to Chancellor Draxil and other council leaders, but most ignored it. Some laughed again, still believing humans were being overly dramatic, trying to act powerful with their myths. But the smarter ones began to worry. One by one, they started to listen more to Velzar's reports. Still, no one dared take action against Earth. Why? Because there was still no direct proof. Only fear, only silence, and only legends. Then came the signal from Earth itself. After nearly 2 months of ghost ships and dark systems, Earth finally sent a message, not through the normal council channels, not through formal lines, but instead broadcasted across every single star system at the same time. A perfect, coordinated burst, no encryption, no hiding, just 5 chilling words. "You never asked, now watch." And then came the sound, not a voice, not music. A deep, vibrating hum, low, powerful, ancient. It was the sound of something massive coming closer. Galaxies away, people could hear it through their ships, through their walls, even through their bones. The Council's best scientists tried to study it, but no machine could trace its source. Some believed it came from deep inside Earth's fleet. Others believed it came from somewhere worse, from a place outside normal space. In the next few days, alien civilizations across the galaxy experienced strange events. In the Jolari system, a school of younglings reported seeing a fiery shadow across the sky, shaped like a sword. In the Valtran sector, a group of priests claimed they dreamed of giant stone beings walking through space. In a hidden bunker on the planet Zuron, an ancient artifact glowed for the first time in 2,000 years, an artifact made by humans during the early galactic era, long thought to be decorative. And then, something happened no one could ignore. The sky went dark over an entire star cluster. 15 systems, all orbiting around the star known as Tralaxis, lost their light, not because the star died, but because something blocked it. Observatories tried to scan. Ships tried to reach the area. Nothing worked. The last image that came through showed a wall, black, silent, stretching across space like a living curtain. A shape behind it, large, shadowed, and terrifying. That was when the panic began. Trade routes were abandoned. Civilizations near Earth's space evacuated. Council meetings now ran 24 hours a day. Fear became the main topic. Not war, not strategy, just fear. Velzar stood before the council again. This time, they all listened. The myths were never fake, he said slowly. They were never jokes. Humans recorded them so the galaxy would forget, so that when the time came, they could return as legends. But why? A council member asked. Velzar stared at the screen behind him, showing the last image from Tralaxis, the shadowed wall. To remind us, he whispered. To remind the galaxy that Earth is not weak, that Earth waits, and when Earth moves, it does not need to shout. It only needs to be seen. The council had no answer, and Earth said nothing more. The fleets remained unseen, but everyone felt them, like a storm building at the edge of space waiting to fall. And Velzar understood now. This wasn't just war. This was a story. A living, breathing myth returning to life. A tale that had slumbered for centuries in human memory, now rising to walk again. And the next chapter was coming soon. It would not be told in words. It would be written in flame. And it would block out the stars. The galaxy had never known true darkness until now. The star systems near Earth's sector began to dim. One by one, suns were blocked out, not because they died, but because something moved in front of them. Telescopes across the galaxy picked up strange readings, massive objects drifting through space. They moved without engines, without signals, without heat. Some scientists thought they were asteroids. Others called them illusions. But Velzar knew the truth. These were ships, Earth's ships, and they weren't shaped like anything the galaxy had ever built. The first confirmed sighting came from a Zarn patrol cruiser. Its captain, Vora Len, was a veteran who had seen many battles. Her crew reported a massive shadow crossing their ship's path. They turned their scanners, expecting to see a rogue moon or ancient wreck. What they saw instead made them freeze. A starship, so large it seemed endless, moved past them without sound. Its hull looked like black metal and bone, shaped like a dragon with wings that stretched across the sky. No lights, no weapons visible. But the feeling it gave off was cold, ancient, and unstoppable. It was real. It was there. And then, it vanished into darkness. The cruiser's crew was silent. No one spoke for hours. When they sent the report to the Galactic Council, it caused a storm. Velzar was called in again. This ship, a council member said nervously, pointing at the dragon-like outline. It matches one of your human myths? Yes, Velzar answered, his voice low. It's called the Sky Serpent, a beast from Earth's oldest stories. They say it sleeps beneath the stars and only wakes when Earth is betrayed. The council chamber fell silent. This wasn't just military power, this was psychological war. Earth wasn't just sending ships, it was sending fears. Fears that had lived in stories for thousands of years. Now they moved through space like ghosts with purpose, and Earth still said nothing. No demands, no speeches, no war declaration, only the ships, huge, silent, and shaped like living myths. More sightings followed. A fleet near the North sector encountered what looked like a floating castle, massive towers built into a ship's frame, with burning red lights like watchful eyes. The ship passed through the system without firing, but every computer on board the North fleet shut down. Their weapons, shields, engines, all offline. The Earth ship never touched them, never spoke. It simply left them paralyzed. And then drifted on. Velzar studied every report. These ships aren't attacking, he told the council. They're displaying, like paintings or warnings. Warnings of what? One elder asked. Velzar looked around the room, of what Earth became in the shadows. Back on Earth, nothing could be seen. But orbiting their sun, hidden behind cloaking fields and artificial blackouts, the full fleet waited. Thousands of warships, each one designed from an ancient story. Ships shaped like wolves. Ships that looked like firebirds, metal titans, and silent hunters. Ships with names like Judgment, the Howler, and the Watcher Beyond. And then the real fear began. Earth's fleet didn't stay together. It spread across the galaxy, in small groups, in singles, in pairs. They moved like stories traveling from one mind to another, silent, quick, unstoppable. Some visited moons and left behind symbols burned into the surface. Others hovered above capital planets for a few minutes, then disappeared. The messages were always the same. We are here. We remember. Do you fear? Turned into silence. The galactic markets slowed. Ships refused to travel near Earth sectors. Trade routes collapsed. Defense networks were raised, but nothing helped. Because no one could find the fleet. You couldn't shoot what you couldn't see. You couldn't fight what didn't respond. And you couldn't stop what moved like a story. Velzar stood before the council again, holding up one of Earth's oldest books, Legends of Flame and Void. He opened it and read a line. When they return, they won't shout. They won't ask. They will simply arrive, and the sky will turn black. He closed the book. It's already happening. That night, across 10 systems, the stars went out again. Not permanently, but for one full hour the stars were hidden. Not by weather, not by machines, but by massive, silent ships passing through like shadows. People stared into the sky in terror. Children cried, elders prayed, soldiers froze, because even though nothing attacked them, they all felt it. Something old was awake, something the galaxy had forgotten, and it looked like Earth hadn't forgotten anything. They had waited. They had built. They had turned their oldest fears into weapons. And now, their stories were alive. Stories that moved without sound. Stories that blocked out the stars. By now, the galaxy no longer laughed. The fear was everywhere. Ships refused to launch. Trade stations closed early. Even council members spoke in whispers, too scared to raise their voices. Something invisible was spreading. Not disease. Not war, fear. But it wasn't coming from guns or fire. It was coming from silence. From ships that didn't speak. From shadows that moved without being seen. From myths walking across space like ghosts. Velzar called it the Whisper War, because no battle had begun, no shots fired, and yet entire civilizations were already falling apart. In the Fralara system, 5 mining stations were found empty, no damage, no blood, just abandoned. Their systems were intact, food untouched, but every single being had vanished. And on the main control screen, a single phrase glowed in red. "We told you not to mock." In the Travaran Empire, a warlord named Varnock sent a message to Earth, mocking their silence, daring them to fight. That night, every communication tower in his empire went dark for 17 seconds. Only 17. When they came back online, every screen displayed the same image, a human face, carved from shadow and steel, staring directly into the viewer. No words, no sound, just the look. Varnock resigned the next day. In deep space, patrols picked up strange readings. Gravity spikes, echoes of massive ships moving faster than light. But no one could catch them. The fleet was everywhere, and yet, nowhere. It was like trying to chase smoke in a thunderstorm. Even the Council's best strategists were lost. "What does Earth want?" Chancellor Draxel asked one day. "If they're not attacking, what is this?" Velzar looked tired. He hadn't slept in days. "They don't want anything. Not yet. This is the prelude." "Prelude to what?" "To memory," Velzar said. "To truth. The galaxy forgot what humans really are. Now they're reminding us. Slowly, quietly, like a shadow across your bed at night. They don't need a war. We're breaking ourselves." And he was right. Across the galaxy, morale dropped. Fleets refused to launch near Earth space. Some planets even surrendered before a single human ship appeared, just from hearing what happened elsewhere. It was like Earth was haunting the stars. Some alien empires tried to respond. They sent out fleets, hunting for Earth's shadow ships. But every time, the same thing happened. The fleet would enter a system. Their lights would flicker. For exactly 66 seconds, all systems would go dark. When power returned, one ship would be missing. Always just one, and always in its place. A strange mark burned into space. Not a laser burn. Not energy damage, just a symbol. Floating, glowing, untouched by science. One time it was a flaming eye. Another time, a sword pointing down. Another, a clock, with no hands. Velzar collected each symbol. He began to see the pattern. "They're telling a story," he whispered. "What story?" someone asked. He looked up slowly. "The end of forgetting." Finally, one council member snapped. "This is madness. We must strike Earth now before it's too late." But no one moved, because no one knew where to strike. Earth had become a ghost planet. All satellites sent to spy vanished. All probes went silent. The last one that returned showed only one image, a sky completely black, blocked by something massive, but shaped like a crown, and then it shut off. Earth wasn't hiding. Earth was watching, not attacking, not threatening, just watching, and still. The galaxy broke piece by piece. In homes, parents whispered to their children about old human monsters, creatures made of war and fury. Children no longer believed in safety. Soldiers no longer believed in victory. No battle had begun. And yet, humanity was winning. Not with weapons, with fear, with memory, with ships that moved like shadows and stories that felt too real. Velzar looked out his window one night, staring at the stars, but he couldn't see most of them anymore. Not because they were gone, but because something was moving between him and the light, something shaped like a myth. And then he finally understood. "This is not war," he whispered. "This is theater, a show, a lesson, a performance written by a species the galaxy once laughed at. A story told not with words, but with silence, shadow, and fear. And the name of that story was clear now. It was the title Earth had chosen. You laughed at our myths. Now our myths laugh back. And somewhere in the dark, the fleet waited. The galaxy waited in silence. Every race, every system, every empire watched the skies and held their breath. No one dared to speak too loudly. No one dared to act. Humanity's shadow ships had become like ghosts, appearing suddenly, leaving quietly but never forgotten. There were no battles, no explosions, no invasions. And yet, the galaxy was breaking. Leaders resigned, soldiers refused orders, planets shut down spaceports. Fear did what weapons couldn't. But then, something new happened. A signal. One short, simple signal. It came from Earth. Not hidden, not encrypted. Sent across the galaxy like a calm whisper through fire. Just one line. Of text, burned into space. You should have listened. It played across every screen, every ship, every station. It repeated only once. But that was enough. For the first time, even the bravest warriors of the Keltari Empire admitted fear. The Ithon monks, known for their wisdom, began meditation, rituals asking for peace with Earth. And in the council hall, Velzar stood with the signal glowing behind him. They warned us, he said quietly. Every myth, every story, every word they left behind, it was all a warning. Some still didn't understand. Others didn't want to, but everyone felt the message. The very next day, an exploration vessel entered the Kepri Void, a dead zone of stars once claimed by pirates. They found a surprise, a monument, floating in space, massive, ancient-looking, built from black metal with glowing blue lines that formed words in dozens of languages. And in the center of it all, a human figure carved into the metal, wearing armor, holding a burning sword. Behind him, a wall of shadow and stars. Underneath, the words, "We were never legends. You just stopped paying attention." No one knew how long the monument had been there. Some believed it was built just days ago. Others thought it had floated there for centuries, waiting for someone to find it. But one thing was certain. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for a long time. The council called an emergency meeting. All seats were filled. The hologram of the monument stood in the center of the room, spinning slowly. Everyone was silent. Until Chancellor Draxil finally asked, "What do they want?" Velzar responded without hesitation. "They want us to remember." "Remember what?" He stared at the image of the human with the burning sword. That Earth was never weak, that they let us forget them, and now they are showing us what we lost. There was a pause. Then another signal came. Not a message, a map. The signal included a series of star coordinates, leading to what the galaxy thought was empty space, but those who followed the map found something terrifying. Earth's true fleet. Not just the ghost ships or the shadow cruisers that had been roaming the galaxy, but thousands of ships, lined up, organized, silent. Each ship was different, designed like living myths, some shaped like beasts, others like towers. Some looked like burning swords or flying wings of fire. Their lights were off, their weapons cold, but their presence was clear. They didn't move, they didn't speak, they just waited. And floating at the center of it all was a massive flagship, larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen, black, gold, engraved with thousands of glowing names. Its name written in red across the hull, the Forgotten. Velzar watched the data come in, his hands shaking. "That's not just a ship," he said. "That's a memory, a monument, a warning." A few races started preparing defenses. But deep down, they knew there was no defense against what Earth had become, because Earth wasn't fighting for power. They were fighting for respect, for truth, and they were doing it without a single shot. Then came the final sign. Above the Council's homeworld, far from Earth, a shadow appeared. A single ship. It didn't attack. It didn't speak. It just hovered. above the Capitol for 5 minutes. Then, on the tallest tower of the council building, a light flickered. A human symbol burned itself onto the wall, an open eye with fire behind it. And next to it, in the old Earth language, "Now you see." The ship vanished, and no one knew where it went, but the message was clear. Humanity hadn't returned with war. Not yet. They had returned with their story, and their story was now being written across the stars. Every ship, every shadow, every whisper. It was all part of one massive tale, a tale that began when the galaxy laughed and would end when Earth decided the final page. Oh, you said, there was no warning, no ships, no lights, no signals, just silence. Across the galaxy, the stars that once danced with light and life began to feel still, not dead, but watching, as if something ancient was holding its breath. For days, no Earthship appeared. The shadows vanished. The whisper signals stopped. The massive fleet spotted earlier drifted back into the void. Space returned to what it once was, quiet. But it wasn't peace. It was something far worse. The council gathered again in emergency session. This time, no one spoke loudly, no shouting, no threats. Even the most war-hungry leaders sat still. The last Earth message still glowed on the main screen. "Now you see." Velzar stood slowly. He looked older, his skin paler, his voice barely a whisper. "They've finished the first part of their story," he said, "and now they wait for our answer." "What do we do?" one counselor asked. No one answered. Because no one knew what answer would be enough. Humanity had done the impossible. Without starting a war, without firing a single shot, they had taken control of the galaxy's fear. They didn't destroy fleets. They destroyed beliefs. Beliefs that humans were weak, that Earth was a joke, that myths were just old stories. But now, no one was laughing. And then, the galaxy learned the truth. One final transmission appeared, only visible to those who had mocked Earth publicly. Leaders, generals, scientists, media personalities, all of them received the same direct message, a video, short, quiet, powerful. It began with an ancient Earth battlefield, humans in armor, charging across fire and mud. Then the scene changed to starships, black as shadow, gliding through the stars. And finally, the screen showed a single sentence. "This time, we came with stories. Next time, we come with fire." That was the last thing anyone heard from Earth. No more ghost fleets, no more signals, no more shadows, just silence. But the silence was worse than war, because now, the galaxy believed. On a planet called Kareth, a university removed all history books that mocked humans. On Veltrax Prime, a memorial to primitive Earth myths was torn down and replaced with a new statue. A human figure standing tall, sword in one hand, stars in the other. And on over 40 worlds, military forces began retraining, not for battle, but for negotiation. They didn't want to fight Earth. They wanted to understand it, to study their myths, to find meaning in the symbols. The story had changed. No longer was Earth a forgotten backwater. Now, Earth was a legend reborn. Velzar stood once more on the council floor. "We laughed at their stories," he said. "We forgot what they meant. But Earth did not forget. And now, the stars remember." Far away, on the edge of known space, a traveler passed by a strange asteroid field. In the center floated a single human ship, black, silent, unmoving. It didn't respond to hails. It didn't move. But written on its hull in glowing gold were the final words the galaxy would remember. "We are the fire beneath your stars. We are the myth you feared was true. And we are waiting." The traveler turned around and left. He told no one. Because he, like the rest of the galaxy, finally understood. You don't chase shadows. You don't challenge ghosts. And you never laugh at the monsters who taught the stars how to burn. And so, the galaxy remained quiet. Not because it was safe, but because it finally knew. Humanity wasn't just back. They were watching. And one day, they would speak again. What they said next would decide everything.